I went on a boat ride, in the words of my 3-year-old niece. As I was pulling out from Clemson, I had my little sailboat in tow, and I was driving my SUV down the road. About 40 minutes down the interstate, I'm going 70 miles an hour with my trailer, and all of a sudden, my car just does that. My RPMs just drop to boom, 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 to 0. My check engine light just flashes on. My check transmission flashes on. My whole car just dies. So I coast over to the median and sit there, try to crank it up again. No go. So I'm dead in the water, if you will, on the side of the road, on my way to a 4-day, all expenses paid, I'm just kidding, 4 days of primitive camping and sailing for the Florida 120. 120 miles, beautiful beaches and surf await me, and I'm broken down on the side of the road! Well, State Farm does a terrible job of getting a tow truck to me, and by the time I get it there, all the rental car places are closed. Oh, P.S. My boat's not insured with State Farm, so I had to get my granddad to drive from like 10 miles away with his 1970 gas guzzler 1 mile to the gallon vehicle, and we tow it back to his house and to a mechanic, and then I get some supper with the grandparents, and I'm twiddling my thumbs, and I'm like, the Florida 120, it starts tomorrow morning, how can I get in the water, I need to be in Florida, it's 8 hours away, how do I get there? So, I post on Facebook, I'm like, anybody got a car they can loan me? And my sister calls, and she's like, Jordan, I found you a car, it's at this airport, at Greenville-Spartanburg International Airport, and it's this X number of dollars, and you should go get it. And I'm like, okay! So, I borrow my granddad's car just to go up to the airport, get to rent-a-car place, which is open after, late hours, so I'm already backtracking like an hour and a half, later. I get my car, turns out I'm under 25 by like a month and a half, and so I have to pay an extra $24 per day. But I'm like, forget it. I'm going to Florida. I'm going to the Florida 120, by golly. So, I get in my Hyundai Elantra, and I zip down the road. And I'm driving, and I'm like, it's like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm starting to fight sleep. But I had gotten this 24-ounce coffee, and I don't drink coffee much. I'm telling you right now, for a guy that doesn't drink coffee much, 24 ounces of coffee loaded with sugar is a lot of coffee. And man, I was feeling good. Boom! I was singing and stuff, whatever, woo! But it started to wear off, because I drank it at about 10. It started to wear off, and about 3:30 I was starting to crash hard. And I told myself, 1 more hour, because my GPS said I would arrive at 4:30 a.m. And I was so excited, 1 more hour. And about 10 minutes from my destination, you know what happened? I realized that the panhandle of Florida is in the next time zone, and that time change means I have yet another hour. Bummer, in the words of my 1.5-year-old niece. So, I went where? To my uncle's house at 5:30 in the morning. Turns out he hadn't been to bed either. He was getting his boat ready, because my boat ain't going to sail. So he's getting his boat ready so we could take it down. So we get his boat, and we get all our gear in it, and I'm like, oh man, that's a lot of gear. I'm not sure we're going to float. This is a lot of gear. We should probably stop putting things in this boat. But we get all the gear, and we get a couple hours of sleep, and then get kind of a late start the next morning. We go. We got all our gear. We're going. We get our boat in the water, and we start sailing. And it's awesome. And all the other boats have already left because we had such a late start. But that's okay, because we got in there before dark, right as the sun was starting to set. We pulled up to port. 30 miles of a beautiful, beautiful day of sailing. Oh, so nice, so nice. I think we tacked once all day. Anyway, it was glorious. So, We go. My uncle's so tired. He doesn't even go to the group meeting. He just crashes in his boat. I go to the group meeting and ended up just having a great time with some good old boys from Clemson, South Carolina. Whoop whoop! Shout out. Oh, Clemson Sailing Club. Oh, the mirror image got me. Anyway, so we went. We had an amazing time. Just had a blast. And then late night fire. I think I was the last one to go to bed, but I finally went to bed and I slept like a rock. Next morning, get up, roll up my tent, get out of there. I'm probably like one of the last 4 to leave. Big deal. We getting some sleep. So we cruise under the bridge, go over, stop, have a little refreshing shower under Juana's pagodas. Turns out there's one under there. A lot of people don't know about it. Anyway, then I end up, that whole day sails 40 miles. So I sail 40 miles. It was amazing. It was a long sail. And then as we're coming into Sand Island, we just crossed the pass where all the bays and sounds of the Pensacola area, where I was sailing, flow in and out of the Gulf. Well, we crossed the pass without any problems, just some big swells. And then we're going to sail around, and it turns out, I'm like, hey, let's go near the shallow water so I can see all the rays. There's all these stingrays that are there. So I stand up on the boat and I'm looking down. I've seen these giant stingrays. I go left and right. See a big old sea turtle. It was super cool. And then we run aground with the centerboard. Oops. No big deal. My Uncle Clint just goes to pull up the centerboard, but as he pulls it up, it gets about halfway up and it kind of jams. And we're like, what's not going on? So when the centerboard doesn't come up because you're pulling it, what do? You pull harder with all of your might. And I will say, if anyone knows my Uncle Clint, he is a mighty man. He is quite the 69-year-old. And so he pulls up on this thing, and he pulls so hard that something breaks. Not him, but something in the boat breaks. So we're like, uh-oh. Well, we get over, we at least sail into the shore. We're like, 100 yards away from where we're mooring that night. And I'm going to throw out the anchor, and I throw it, and I'm like, our boat all the time is going straight into the shore, and the anchor is not caught yet. It hasn't caught on the bottom because we're hoping it'll just catch and turn us around and we'll park. We'll be done. The anchor never catches, and we just about run into some boats. But we didn't hit anybody. It was okay. Anyway, later got a fellow in a little tiny ISIS drive kayak to go drop an anchor off the back of the boat for us so we could at least have a couple anchors in the water. Oh man. Whew. Exciting days. So it turns out we couldn't get our jib down. We're like, why can't we get our jib down? Because we can't get our centerboard up. Why can't we get our centerboard up? Because the jib line fell off the boat and underneath the centerboard. So when we pulled up the centerboard, the line got pinched in the centerboard well. It's jammed. There's a line jammed in our centerboard. So our centerboard won't go up, it won't go down. It's about in the halfway position, about a 45-degree angle. So this is problematic. So my uncle cuts the jib because the jib is just going. It's really annoying. So he cuts the line, and I'm like, don't do that, no. And then, of course, what happens is that little piece goes all the way to the top of the mast, which means somehow we got to get to the top of the mast, which we did the next morning, no problem. I climbed up on the top of the mast and grabbed a gaffing pole and hooked a little carabiner. I duct taped the carabiner to the end with it open, and I hooked that little halyard and I pulled it back down while balancing on one foot on a cooler set on top of the boat while hanging onto the mast and reaching this pole over my head. It was really exciting. Long story short, we decide we can sail the next day with our centerboard. Oh, by the way, we get in the water and we try to get this line loose. It's not coming out. This thing is wedged in there good. Also, the broken piece, my uncle sheared off a metal part, and he's just super strong. Anyway, so we decide the next day is all a downwind sail, and we don't really need our centerboard all the way down. We don't have to go upwind tomorrow. So we kind of go downwind the whole 25 miles to the site where we're going to camp that night, which has 4 names: Escambia Point, or Escabino Point, Scavans Point, Grassy Point, and Skull Island, as referred to by the Blackwater Bay pirates, who were also there that night. So anyway, long story short, we decided to just sail right past the campsite for the night, and about a mile across the bay to where? Just so happens my uncle's aunt has a boat ramp right there and a little place where we can get some tools to try to work on this thing. So what we needed was a big lever arm, but we didn't have any giant 2x4s that we could use out on Sand Island. It's an island made of sand and sand only, and it's pretty cool, but it's just sand. So we got a 2x4 and we put it underneath the boat, and my uncle put a little piece of 2x4 on this side, and then the dagger board's stuck underneath right here. And so I simply stood all my weight on this side of the boat and went, and we worked that center board. We worked the center board down, 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 and worked that free. And so I grabbed that line and I wiggled that line and we pulled the line out, and the center board was free. Yay! So now we could at least get it up onto a boat trailer if we needed to, right? Because we can actually lift the center board. Well, the center board is not lifted, however, because we've broken a part inside. It just goes to a pulley. So what we do is we tie a strap all the way around the boat with a loop in one end and put the rope through it. And then I cinch it while my uncle kind of slides the rope over the center board. And what happens? The completely down center board gets lifted, while we give the boat a giant hug with a thin line. So, boat's in good shape. Alright, we've sort of halfway repaired the boat. We can't really put our center board up and down, but we have it up so we can get it on the trailer the next morning, no problem. But I don't want to miss the party. Just so happens my uncle's aunt's next door neighbor is going out to Skull Island that night because they are a couple of Blackwater Bay pirates, the same crew that just so happened to help me out last year when my super uncle brought my boat after it sank. You can check out the other video, something about the Patriot, blah blah blah, death and resurrection of the Patriot, that's it. So anywho, I show up on a pontoon boat that I rowed over with the neighbors who just happened to be Blackwater Bay pirates, who are having their one meeting, which happens one night a year out on this point, which is the same site where the Florida 120 crew all meets and camps in that night. And so I show up and boom, I'm there. And it turns out a couple folks had gone out looking for me, Terry Green and Pat Jackson. Thanks for doing that, guys. So they went out looking for me, didn't find me, came back, no big deal. So I gave Pat a lovely token of appreciation, and they even still had some fun stuff in the poker run left over, awesome items, very cool lantern which I used in a cave, the Stump House Tunnel cave, which we visited this past weekend. Also a really cool homemade chart keeper where I can write on the outside. Oh, very cool stuff. Anyway, and my favorite item, which I haven't gotten to use yet. Bippity boppity boo, long story short, I had an amazing time in the Florida 120. I hitched a ride back home the next day, and I crashed for about so many hours, and then I woke up, ate some food, and crashed again because I was so tired. But we had beautiful weather the whole time, great sailing. My uncle thanked me. We had a super wonderful time. Turns out it was a small repair in my car. I got that fixed. Everything's bippity boppity going. Loved it. Loved it. And now my sailboat, I had gotten it already, and it's all good, and I sailed it this weekend. It was super wonderful, and summertime's here, and the lake is warm, and the water is nice, and I'm just a happy camper. So, moral of the story is, if your car dies, don't give up, because there's a lot of water out there, and it's high time you went sailing. That's it.